Here at the third and final day of Roots Rendezvous, and this has been my humble abode for the last couple of days. The mosquito net has worked extremely well, and tarp has too, except for this rear corner down here. Got a little wet. Gonna start packing up, putting everything away, and go get this fired up with some tea.
Totally.
Are red line needles as long and soft? Like, I don't know the red line, but that's just
Yeah.
my first thought when I looked at it. Just wondering. Like,
Yeah, okay, cool. So your first thought when you look at it right off, right? You're keying into the patterns, but you can't explain why you know this is a white pine, right? So that's called Gestalt Understanding, right? Anybody know what Gestalt means?
When you look at something and you see a face in the rock, or it invokes some kind of meaning from that shape, that image.
Yeah, so it's like, is that part of it?
Well, that's how we learned about it in photography school.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think originally it's like a psychoanalysis theory. It's sort of about like the thingness of the thing, like all of the disparate parts come together and make like an indivisible whole. When we talk about it in plant ID, it means just what we're saying. It's like you can look at something and you know it's that thing and you don't know why you know it's that thing, right? Which is really, really useful and important, right? Gestalt identification is like a really ancient part of our brains that is super, super good at keying into patterns. And like, that's really awesome, right? And because we now have like a frontal lobe and like higher capacities of reason, which are also really important in addition to our like, you know, like instinctual capacities. To really know how to identify a tree, right, you need to integrate your Gestalt understanding with some specific details. So this is a white pine, and you know it's a white pine just because you know, but does anybody know what would distinguish it at this distance from a red pine? We've got color of bark, which is great, right, and maybe texture of bark. I think about halfway up, right above the other saplings that are by its base, you can get a pretty good look at the color and texture of that bark for a couple chunks.
Yeah, it's not deeply grooved.
No.
There isn't a lot of dark shadows.
Yeah.
So it has less texture than the redwood.
Do anybody know? I've not seen red pine on this land, but I don't know this land super well.
I also think like there is red.
There's not? Okay.
Also, like looking at a red pine too, like not that they're over there, but like the needles are like thicker, so like it looks less fluffy.
Yeah, where are they thicker?
Where?
Where on the tree branch are the needles on red pines thicker?
Closer to the trunk, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so they form these like little pom-pom balls out towards the end of the branches. So 60-mile-an-hour botany, like look at the way the needles are arranged along the branch of this white pine. And if you see a big pine-looking tree from the freeway, but the needles are clustered more consistently in pom-pom puff balls at the end of the branches, you might be looking at a red pine. Oh yeah. Know your mushrooms. Yeah, that's a good hypothesis. How about just look at the very top? So the fir and spruce are like pretty easily snapped off. They're trees that like have evolved and like really consistent long-term ecosystems, right? They are boreal Yeah, okay, cool. There's another one. into Georgia. So this idea of branching is not usually applied to conifers. It sort of works with them and sort of doesn't. So for now, we're going to set the conifers aside and just talk about deciduous trees. So, and again, this is like learning the names of species at this point is far less important than learning some techniques and some skills for observation. And one of those is basically like clumping things, putting things in categories. So when you talk about deciduous trees, one way to start looking at them and start like paying attention to them is to group them into two basic categories based on their branching pattern. Anybody know the two basic branching patterns I'm talking about? Alternate and opposite. Yeah. It's pretty self-explanatory. On opposite trees, the smaller branches come off the big branches opposite from each other. And in alternate trees, the smaller branches come off the big branches alternate from each other. So, and y'all might have to scoot around so you can really see this. Actually, I tell you what. We'll do this in like a couple stations so you can all get a closer look. So here is a tree. So I want just some of you come over, enough of you that you can actually get a good look at this sapling here. What's the branching pattern?
Opposite.
Opposite. Does anybody not see that? It's okay to say I don't see it. Cool. Opposite branching. Who are our options for opposite branching? Great. So, to which group does this twig belong?
Maple.
Why? The leaves are maple leaves. What kind of ID is that?
Canadian
Gestalt
flag.
ID. Let's fill in some details, right? Gestalt is awesome. It's one half of the picture. What does a maple leaf look like? A lot of people are holding up their hands. What does that mean? Palmate. What does palmate mean?
Well, basically that the veins are kind of emanating from one source, right?
Okay.
Like the hand would.
Cool. Yeah. So can everybody see that there are veins on this leaf that are emanating from the point where this petiole or leaf stalk hits the leaf blade? And they all radiate out from that one central point. So this is palmately veined. What else? There's another palmate thing that's going on here.
With the lobes.
Lobes. This is palmately lobed. These are all lobes that connect to the veins that radiate out from a central point. Not palmately veined. Can y'all? Is there enough reflection on those veins that y'all can see them well from where you are?
Turn the other way, we can see it too. You show us the
Oh yeah. Okay. The back of that, does that make sense? All the veins on this one are radiating out from a central point. The veins on this one are all going down to the central vein. That makes sense? Cool. So we can say about maple leaves that they have veins that radiate out from a central point where the leaf stalk hits the leaf blade, and the lobes are associated with that, right? What else can you say about a maple leaf that makes it a maple leaf? What's that? Okay, so you're talking about the parts in between the lobes. On this particular maple, they're swoopy. Yeah, they're kind of round. Let's take a step back from that and sort of like, again, try to figure out what makes this a maple leaf.
It's like divided into
Three major parts? How many major parts do y'all see here? Three? Yeah, it's kind of maybe a little vague. Like, are these major parts down here, right? They have a vein that comes out from the central point that goes to them, but they are much smaller than these three major points, right? So yeah, three. Let's see if we got another one. How about this one? How many basic points and parts does this one have? five with a question mark, right? These two at the bottom, like, are they as big as these lobes, the three other lobes up top? Not really, but they're there. Okay, so how many lobes does a maple leaf have?
5.
Or three?
Or 3 to 5.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, it's lobed. It has at least 3 and maybe 5 or possibly a few more, right? Lobes. What else can you say about it?
It's toothed. The leaf is toothed.
It's toothed. Okay, cool. What does toothed mean?
These little points that are coming out here on the very end of the leaf.
Yeah, so this one's toothed, right? Can you see all those little teeth along the margin or the edge of the leaf? Would you call these teeth on this one?
Yeah.
They're too big. Like, I can see why you might, but botanists don't. Botanists call these points on the lobe. Rather than you hold them up next to each other, you can see the difference, right? These teeth are really little. They're serrated, they're jagged, they're small. Rather than these larger points on the lobe. So according to botanists, right? Some maple leaves are toothed, some aren't. They all have points around the edge, though. Who do we have here for maples?
Red.
Sugar.
Red, sugar, silver, moose, striped.
There's Norway and other invasive like brought in.
You know, it's planted in people's yards every once in a while. I see it in a drainage ditch along a road. I haven't ever seen it get much farther than that.
Sorry.
I leave it off the list because of my bias, my personal bias.
What was the question?
Oh, about Norway maple? Okay, so who's on our list so far again? Sugar. Red, silver,
Mountain or striped?
striped, which is the same as mountain, right? Which is the same as, there's another common name for that one. Moose maple. Yep. So swamp maple is another common name for which one that we've already named? Red maple. Yeah, so silver maple is a floodplain tree. It is not a swamp tree. Floodplains are generally pretty well drained, right? Red maple can handle bad soils. Swamp soils tend to be bad because there's not a lot of oxygen and things don't dissolve, like things don't compost that quickly, right? So you'll find red maple in the Everglades and all the way up here, and like all along the East Coast in relatively poor soils. It doesn't mean it only grows in terrible soils. A lot of places you'll find it growing right next to sugar maple, which likes rich soils.
Is there black maple?
Yeah, is black maple a subspecies or is it its own?
I think that is its own thing way farther west in the North Woods. I think that starts in like western New York or something, or maybe out in Ohio. I don't know. Anybody who like hangs out in the Great Lakes region, isn't there a black maple out there? It's not around here. Okay, so we've got red, sugar, silver, moose, which is striped, which is well,
No, different.
so moose and striped, and what's the third name?
Mountain.
I might have said that earlier, but I didn't mean to. There's a third name for
Goosefoot?
moose and striped. Goosefoot, right? Because the leaves look like goose feet. I was trying to find one around here. I didn't see one. Mountain. So that's 5, and there's one more that's sort of like a trickster. Yeah,
What was it?
ash-leafed maple. There's another common name that's more common, which is fox elder. Yeah, I wish that people would call it ash-leaf maple because that makes way more sense. Yeah, yep, yeah, in the maple family, in the maple genus. So box elder. Why? Anybody know why it is usually called box elder?
Make boxes with it?
So the wood is, it's not a soft wood, it's a light hardwood, which before like the days of like plastic crates and totes and stuff, pretty much everything was shipped for commerce was shipped in wooden crates. Box elder was a good species to make boxes out of. It grows really fast. And why was it called elder? What's that? It actually generally dies pretty young. How about the leaves? What do the leaves look like on a box elder?
Beard? I don't know.
The front one does, yeah. So they're compound leaves, right? And we might get to what compound leaves are, so you don't know what that is, sorry. We'll see how much time we have. but they look like the leaves of an elderberry. So it was like, oh, this is the thing that looks like an elderberry that you make boxes out of, which is a useful name if you want to make boxes out of trees. It's not that useful if you're trying to build associations with plant families. So I like ash leaf maple a whole lot better for that, because ashes have compound leaves, right? So you're looking at the leaf, you're like, oh, this looks like an ash leaf, but this is a maple, it's the ash leaf maple. Let's take a minute or two and really pay some close attention. Let's make our circle a little better so we're all in one line and we're all in an actual something approximating a circle. Just looking. Yeah. So the way that you use a hand lens is you put it up to your eye and you bring the thing close to you until it comes into focus.
Oh. Yeah, what's the way to do it? Really, 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 really good.
His little hairs.